Hello.
They've done it again.
They have. What a set. Hey, before we get too deeply into it, let's bring our guest in because I know he's excited about the set he just heard too. We've got Aaron Magner, the keyboardist of Disco Biscuits and Billy and the Kids, joining us tonight to talk about the great set we just heard and some other stuff. Welcome.
Hey guys, good to see you.
Hey, Aaron.
How are you? Thanks for having me.
You bet. We've had experts and friends joining us for every one of these broadcasts, and we're happy to have you because you're a musician and we like talking about music with musicians.
I mean, that was a fun set to watch for sure. That's the first set of the tour that I really got to hone in on, listen to. We were kind of texting towards the end there. That was phenomenal.
Yeah, and David and I've had this luxury of seeing every set of the tour, and you get to focus on different things and like different interrelationships in the music. Tonight I had a really good listening intently to O'Teal set.
Okay.
Just what little things he was playing under Jeff's organ solo on that Franklin's Tower, and then when they did that nice slowdown of the final vamp, and John really draws out the vocal before they slam back into the groove.
I love that.
Just so many sweet things going on. Hey, David, why don't you run down the set list for folks,
I will.
And then we'll get into. Yeah.
Okay, but we have to credit Jacob Lima for making sure that we knew that what John sang just before that organ solo was, if you get confused, listen to the B3 play. That's what he said.
Very nice.
So the set was Shakedown Street, Samson and Delilah, He's Gone, Into Big Railroad Blues, Lost Sailor, Saint of Circumstance, and Franklin's Tower. That's like all second set shit there, people.
Right. As a reggae DJ friend of mine likes to say, all killer, no filler.
And really tight too. I mean, that Lost Sailor, not an easy song, number one. Not an easy song to write or to play, and executed perfectly and with deliberate emotion in it. That was great, man. It really was. Kudos.
Yeah. I like what John Mayer has found to do in that song. He's kept a few of the things from Jerry that sort of amount to compositional, architectural aspects, but also added an awful lot of his own style and orchestration into that song, which is what we expect and hope for from him.
I mean, I feel like that's the fine line that any musician that gets to interpret the music of the Grateful Dead has to walk, right? There's a certain homage that you need to pay to your predecessors, especially when that predecessor is Jerry Garcia. And then there's a certain expression of your own individual personality that you want to have, otherwise it's not honest and it's not true. And that's what an audience really wants to see. They want to see honesty. They want to see truth, because that's something that everybody can identify with. And I think we were, as Deadheads, we were confused for a little bit exactly what it was that we were looking for, almost for 20 years, right? Think about it, this I think of it as a lost period in time, where we were searching or I don't even know what was going on. But from 95 to 2015, it was, everybody had question marks. And then I don't know what it was that ignited in 2015 at GD50 that, propelled this movement to where it is now, to its place in history that is going to be here now forever. I mean, I don't know whether the legacy of the Grateful Dead would be as powerful as we all certainly know it's going to be in the years and generations to come, had GD50 not transpired.
I think what happened in Chicago in particular, where Gary and I were there every day doing a Sirius XM stream, that all the tribes gathered again for one more time, and they all discovered that they really like being together. And let's maybe not scatter to the four winds for the rest of our lives. And shortly after that, Dead and Company was announced, and we had a place for the tribe to gather. So, and that I think had an expanding influence over all of the rest of this scene. All of the children of the Grateful Dead have all grown up and are thriving now on their own terms, years after the passing of the Dead. So the whole culture sort of grew and added new generations. It became more robust, and now here we all are celebrating it just as hard as ever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed. Um, hey, we should say before we get too deep into this conversation, and I have a feeling this is going to be a deep conversation,
I'm
that
in.
what you're watching is something called Dead Air with Lambert and Gans. I'm Lambert. Gans is one slot further than he usually is when it's just two of us. In the middle is Aaron Magner, and this is a halftime show that we have been engaged. Right, the old pointing conundrum. Right. Uh, this is a halftime show that we are so happy Nugsnet has engaged us to do at every show on this tour, and it is in part to entice you to check out these wonderful live streams that you can purchase. They are offering free previews of each set, and we are part of the free preview of the second set. So you will get to hear the first song of the second set after this, and it might just inspire you to go out and buy that stream. And you can retroactively buy the whole tour, even though they are now, I think, 9 shows into it. You can then go back and watch. Once you start watching a stream, you then have 48 hours to watch it as many times as you want after your first viewing. So pretty cool deal. And I think a lot more people are going to be interested in seeing the whole tour now that we're seeing how beautifully it's turning out. So that's the end of the advertisement for now. We may come back to that later. But yeah, what Aaron and David just said, it has occurred to me that the dilemma facing so many guitarists playing this music in the post Jerry era is, how deferential should I be to Jerry's legacy? How much can I step out on my own? And I think John Mayer has struck on the most amazing balance of being completely who he is, bringing in all the influences to bear that he's learned through his love for blues and pop and folk music and everything that he loves. As you guys said, honoring the structures Jerry created and then diverging from them in really interesting ways. So I'm loving it.
I wonder whether Mayer's approach, and this, it still definitely sounds like him, right? It's true John Mayer with a deep respect and affinity for, the musicality of Jerry, right? So borrowing from that, reinterpreting it and everything. I wonder whether he excels at that so much because he had such an illustrious career without really knowing much about the Grateful Dead. And then the deep dive that he started to take in 2013, 14, whatever it was, when he started getting exposed to it. And he really dug in deep. But now, with all the knowledge that he had as a musician and being able to respect it differently, as opposed to growing up on the music of the Grateful Dead and ingrained in your DNA, and you've been playing it since you were 14 with your dad and everything like that.
Right. He
Um,
was already somebody in particular elsewhere. And so
right.
he brought a fully formed musical personality into this music. And I really think that the people that write music are different from people who just play and interpret music. And
Sure.
you come and appreciating that the Grateful Dead were great improvisers and great songwriters and great interpreters, I think. But he comes in with gravitas of his own, with mass of his own as a creative person. So he steps into the ring as an equal, kind of, really.
100%. Um, you know, borrowing that concept, for how I approach the music of the Grateful Dead, of interpreting it, because it is ingrained in my DNA. I grew up listening to the Dead, but interestingly, never played in any Dead cover bands. Really, didn't have that songbook. The songbook that I had growing up was jazz standards. So the music is ingrained in my head, but never really in my fingers. So the first time that I had exposure to playing this songbook was with Billy. So I had already, in the same way, figured out my identity as a musician, and now got to lend that, to the interpretation of the Grateful Dead. So yeah, two different approaches.
Yeah, very much so. You just mentioned playing with Billy, and that's a wonderful story unto itself. And also, I'm interested to hear that your orientation was jazz standard. So I'm sure you're appreciating what Jeff Cometti brings to this music, because his vocabulary is so incredibly rooted in jazz, and it's sort of fulfilled. For years, I had these sort of fantasies. What would the Grateful Dead sound like if Herbie Hancock sat in, if Bill Evans sat in, if Horace Silver sat in? And Jeff is sort of answering those questions for me, because he's got such he encompasses so much of that music, you know.
Sure. I mean, you get those, milestone teases in Dead and Company. With Grateful Dead, you kind of had so what teases, which was kind of fun.
Right.
But yeah, there's jazz that's explored, on this stage, and it's a tip of the hat for sure, where this improvisational art form kind of derives from.
Yeah, indeed.
Can I ask you about Philadelphia Young Playwrights?
Oh yeah,
Sure.
Tell us about Philadelphia Young Playwrights, Aaron.
So the Philadelphia Young Playwrights is a charity that I sit on the board of directors for. My mom actually started the organization 30 years ago, and I continue her legacy by sitting on the board. Our mission statement is to inspire learning and creativity through the process of playwriting. And we go into, I think it's 67 Philadelphia schools, mainly public schools, mainly inner city schools as well, but all over. And through the process of playwriting, which is a, month after month kind of course, if you will, that involves, multiple teachers and dramaturgs. And these kids kind of learn their own voice through storytelling. And it's powerful. It's powerful to watch the transformation process. It's powerful to watch the collaboration that takes place. Yeah, it's great. Rex Foundation was one of our benefactors one year. So, there's a little crossover here too. But yeah, it's an awesome organization for sure.
Well, while we're talking about it, why don't you go ahead and tell people how they can find out more about it and maybe make a contribution if they're interested?
Wonderful. So the organization is the Philadelphia Young Playwrights, and the website is phillyyoungplaywrights.org.
Great.
I've been a drama. Gary and I both are theater goers as well as music freaks and stuff. So I've always, and I really have, been going to plays as long as I've been going to concerts. So I appreciate that what you just said. I was going to tease that key word out. Collaboration is also a huge part of playmaking, acting, writing words for other people to say, getting people to say them, and working in an ensemble. Being in a play is like being in a band in a way.
Yeah, 100%. Except the difference is that you're using words as opposed to using notes in having conversation. That to me, that unspoken ability to communicate, to communicate in this other language, and within those notes, it could have, a happiness, it could have a joke, it could have some mean qualities to it, but it's expressive, not just in the people that are interpreting it by listening to it, but in the way that you have a high level dialogue with other musicians.
Right.
Now, when I think about it, go ahead, Gary.
Well, I was just going to say that I'm really happy to hear that Rex supported Philly Young Playwrights. We are, of course, always urging people to support Rex. Part of our purpose in being here is to bring attention to the charitable efforts in our community. So I'm glad we were able to shine a light on the one you're involved in. And we urge people to go to Participation Row at the shows and find out how they can both donate financially and contribute their own energies and efforts in a volunteer way to Rex and to Headcount. And I know Headcount has been integral in the life of the Disco Biscuits because your partner, Mark Brownstein, was a co-founder and is co-chair of Headcount. So this all ties together nicely, doesn't it?
It really does. It's this, the community that, Mark and I entered when we were kids just wanting to play music, and then found, other like-minded people that both played music or listened to music or were activists, and in the early Wetlands days, and just being able to transform the world that we live in and try and make the world a better place it multiple ways, right? By bringing happiness through, music, or by actually, activism, or raising money for a cause, or connecting people. I mean, that's a huge thing that, certainly the Disco Biscuits, but a lot of these other bands do too. It's, connecting the dots, because once you put them together, it could really have a powerful wave behind it. And that, to me, looking back, I mean, the Disco Biscuits have been a band now for 25 years. So we're at that point where we're able to get some perspective on what we've accomplished. Not just musically, but also, the positivity and change that we've been able to inspire in other people. And for me, one of the most powerful things is, the butterfly effect that this organization has caused in our friends and our families and other businesses that we helped, connect some dots. I mean, my wife and I met at a Disco Biscuit concert, so now we have 3 kids because of that, and how many countless relationships, and, it's a powerful butterfly effect.
That's nice.
Wonderful.
I remember Gathering of the Vibes one year when you guys had Billy and Mickey on stage with you. That was an insane set.
Totally. And I was just having this conversation recently about the genesis of that, because it kind of seemed like it came out of left field, right? And somebody asked me recently, like, what happened there? And I was like, it kind of manifested it. Like, what do you mean? It's like, well, we needed to take a year off from Camp Bisco. It's our annual festival that we do every single summer. And we needed to kind of reorganize, and we took the year 2014 off. And Ken Hayes at Gathering of the Vibes was interested in booking the Disco Biscuits. And I had a conversation. I was like, what if we do the Disco Biscuits with Bill Kreutzmann and Mickey Hart? And that was kind of the genesis of how it happened. And that was one of the catalysts that led to Billy and the Kids. Billy and I
Right.
just kind of got along really well at that Gathering at the Vibe show. And then Benji Eisen, the other butterfly in this situation, flapped his wings, and Billy and the Kids was born.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, I've watched Billy evolving in the post-Grateful Dead world, from basically saying, I'm kind of retired. He wanted to swim. He wanted to be in the water in Kauai. And then he would dip his toe back in, and the Dead went out as the Dead. And then Billy would go back to Kauai and, sort of be in retirement mode. But then he'd have a band like Seven Walkers for a while. And then Dead and Company really revitalized his interest in playing a lot more, playing in front of people. And then suddenly there was Billy and the Kids. He had an offshoot from Dead and Company. And let's talk a little bit about how that came together, when the phone calls came and how the team was put together and all that.
Yeah, so Billy and the Kids was before Dead and Company, was slightly before Dead and Company, right? I think the first Billy and the Kids show was 2014. Is that possible?
Oh, maybe
I don't
it
know.
was.
Where's the
Was it at
statistics
Lockett?
here? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But we weren't called
that's
Billy
right.
and the Kids yet. It was Bill Kreutzmann's
Right.
Lock and Step All Stars.
Lock
That's
and
right.
Step. There you go.
Right. Different team. It had
And
Kim Ock and some other people. It wasn't the same lineup as it is now, right?
right. And O'Teal, and then we brought up some special guests. We had Taj Mahal come up and Keller Williams come up. Yeah. So I don't know. There was, kind of a dozen, 15 maybe, Billy and the Kid shows, and then Dead and Company definitely took up that bandwidth, for Billy, who wanted to definitely, spend his time presumably, swimming, but also needed that sustenance and creativity to play music for sure. So, Billy and the Kids just kind of laid dormant for a little bit. And then with the pandemic and trying to figure out, as everybody did during the pandemic, what can we do? And again, Benji Eisen going, we're going to get together in Hawaii and we're going to play some music together. And that's what happened. And it kind of ushered in, looking back at it, it kind of ushered in the end of the first phase of a pandemic, and then it seemingly felt like we were re-entering the world as we once knew it, and who knows what's happening now. But
Mm.
yeah, that Hawaii thing definitely it felt like the party to invite everybody back.
Right.
Um,
And and to the already stellar core of you and Tom Hamilton and Reed Mathis and Billy for Grateful Mahalo. And since then, you've added in the wonderful lagniappe of James Casey on saxophone and Billy Strings on lots of things. So I'm sure that's been just a complete gas for all of you.
yeah, it's kind of one of those. It magically happened, and that's the amazing part about doing what we do as musicians is we get to try and to collectively experience, and therefore get to create, not all the time, but sometimes, magic. And it's certainly what we felt happened while we were in Hawaii. There was definitely a confluence of events. Number one, the set and setting that we were in, and the fact that we'd been cooped up for 16 months or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden, here we are reemerging in this beautiful land. That felt like magic, but then that magic kind of continued when we randomly decided to play 2 nights at Red Rocks too, and that was
Randomly.
how it was powerful. It was the energy was palpable. It was electric. We could feel it before even walking out to stage. So you hear musicians talk about the symbiotic relationship between an audience and the musicians, and how it's circular and it spirals. And you give what you receive, and you receive what you give, and that whole thing. But even before we stepped out to stage, there was some sort of electricity in the air that we fed off of, and it energized us. And the way that I describe it, how powerful it was, it felt like if there was an evil supervillain, they would want to harness that energy for evil. It was like so. It was such a powerful thing.
Yeah. Well put. Well, you mentioned that's the symbiosis between audience and band. You've also been fortunate. The latest incarnation of Billy and the Kids had this incredible setting as well. First, the Grateful Mahalo setting, and then Red Rocks, which are where the space, as I like to say, is a collaborator in the magic. Like where you are playing, really can inform the way the audience feels, and the way the band responds to it, and the way the audience and band respond to each other. And that really seemed true of these gigs you did.
Of course. And, let's go back a little bit and talk for a second about James Casey and Billy Strings, because
Yeah.
they were such a catalyst in providing this spark, that the band was able to then, generate and run off of. James Casey, number one, is just a phenomenal musician, a phenomenal person, right? So to be surrounded, I feel like all of us and Billy and the Kids are just really great people. They're people, these are humans that I would like to deliberately choose to surround myself with. And James Casey is certainly one of them. But his musicality as well is, he exists on another level of musicianship. He's the type of musician that we all inspire to be. He also is not familiar with any of this catalog, which
Right.
I think was absolutely awesome, because his ears are so good, right? And all of our ears are pretty good. That's kind of what makes the band, good improvisationally. We all have big ears. We're all listening to each other. But James will listen to us play a verse and a chorus of a song that he'd never heard before, and then understand how it works. So, we're all sitting there fiddling around with our charts or our iPads, or talking about what harmonies you're going to take, and da da da. And James listens to it once and he has it. And I guess now that I say it out loud, it's probably not that far off from what, Branford experienced at Nassau, or whatever his first show was, right? Where he kind of got up there and listened to a verse and a chorus and was like, okay, I understand what's going on now, and then just kind of winged it.
That's exactly what he told us. We interviewed him a few nights ago, and he said that's exactly what he said. I listened to the first verse, and then I started playing. That's what you do,
right? And gifted and attuned enough musicians can do that. I mean, Bradford was not only like inserting little comments on what the band was doing, he was like harmonizing lines that Jerry had played, and
Right.
just using his amazing vocabulary and his instincts to contribute. Now, I definitely got that sense from James. I'm a big fan of James's from Trey's band, so
Sure.
I knew what he was capable of. But seeing him in this context and seeing him animate those songs in his way was really great.
Did we know that Billy Strings played electric too?
I certainly did not. And what I find awesome about Billy playing electric is I feel, and I could be wrong about this, but I feel like he's an acoustic guy and therefore kind of like figuring out how to play electric guitar kind of like on the fly. But because of his honesty, because of the, DNA, the Grateful Dead that's inside his DNA already, it works, and we're forgiving is not the word, because he definitely rips on that electric guitar, but on the things that he's still figuring out of like, it's kind of like trying on a pair of shoes for the first time. You're like, these feel good, but I'm going to need to walk in them for a little bit in order to really get used to them. I kind of think that that's what's going on with him and electric guitar, but I could be wrong. I think of him as an acoustic player.
He didn't really seem to be struggling with the medium at all. I think he found his comfort zone pretty quickly. But all of that stuff, I think, in a way, that's something that we all want. I have a line in one of my songs that says, "Uncertainty is not a thing to fear." And that's one of the things about improvisation. It's a song about jamming. And I really think that bringing people out to the edge of their competence is where the adventure lies in a lot of this, right? And trying new things and being in a situation where perfection isn't required. It's attainable, but it's not required. So you can go in there and, try some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and you need to have confidence in the other people that you're playing with, that, you can go try some stuff and everybody's going to be cool with it. In fact, they're going to be inviting of it. Try something you've never done before. Take risks. I got your back. That's an important thing to know when you're playing in an improvisational band, for sure.
Yeah, and of course, so appropriate here because being unafraid to make your mistakes in public was very on brand for the Grateful Dead themselves. So, people are not unaccustomed to that. Hey, Aaron, I just want to let you know the band is starting to gather on stage again. We will usually just say goodnight to our guests so they can gently exit before cutting them off abruptly. But we're having so much fun with this that we think we'll keep you on until the house lights go down. So if we have to cut you off in mid-sentence, nothing personal, but we're really digging this conversation.
All good. Awesome.
All
Let's
right.
go until the lights
Tell
come
us
down.
about your kids.
That's what you want to talk about?
I want to hear about your kids.
I have 3 young kids, a set of 9-year-old twins and a 7-year-old little guy. And we've been in this house together for 18 months now, or whatever it's been, and they go back to school next week.
You sound relieved.
Yeah, it's been an interesting year for everybody, for sure.
Wow.
I'm sure. So, folks, we just want to reacquaint you. If you just tuned in recently, we're talking to Aaron Magner during Set Break at Dead & Company's show in Hartford. We are told some band members have assembled on stage, but that's always a random process, how many are going to get there when. And we're really enjoying this. And we're doing this through the courtesy of nugs.net, who are streaming all these shows, and you can avail yourselves of them. Aaron, I was just going to say, has there been talk of some more Billy and the Kids activity down the road? I know you can't reveal anything until it's actually etched in stone, but is there a hope to do that some more?
I think there is definitely excitement to see what else can be done with this project. The future of the world as we know it is certainly uncertain. Um, but yes, I think that the energy, the camaraderie, the musicality of this project wants to be explored more. So I certainly hope that the world gives us an opportunity to manifest that to happen too.
Wouldn't it be nice to get out and play live again? Ah.
I mean, we're kind of doing it, right? Winter is coming, so who knows what's around the corner, but we're kind of doing it and figuring out how to exist with this thing, or figure out how to take a couple steps back if needed. At least we know what needs to be done, or the uncertainty that we had a year ago, we kind of like know how to deal. We know what risk factors are. So all these things get weighed, and we continue marching one foot in front of the other. Um, might be a different case come winter. I don't know.
We'll see.
We all think we could outsmart this thing, but we not yet,
Right.
not yet. But I've
Right.
got hope.
But I'm really inspired to see bands and venues and promoters and everybody. You're really trying to get on the same page about encouraging responsibility, encouraging cooperation, encouraging the solutions that'll make this better for all of us. And I'm very impressed with the way Dead and Company's management has handled this. I hear the vaccination checks have been really done beautifully and all that. So. That's the way out of this. And in the meantime, we're happy to bring this to people who can't be there. And one of the saving graces of this past year has been the resourcefulness with which people have gotten music out there in alternative ways. Grateful Mahalo is a great example of that, for example, just to cite one. But a lot of musicians have done some really cool, creative things with the web. And, we hope that continues. Even as we move into more public assemblage, I think using these resources to get music to people is going to be with us.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that we had the technology available to us, but all of a sudden we were propelled into a point where, now we had to kind of use it and debug it on the fly. I don't think the world was kind of prepared to, embrace it, because the technology was still kind of new, but at least the technology existed. So kind of interesting that, we were all accepting of the flaws of streams and figuring it out. I tuned into some TRI shows and Bob Weir, and, like every step of the way, he would figure out a new piece of the puzzle, how to involve the audience in it, how to involve the audience so that there wasn't much of a lag time and you could hear a cheer, that's kind of cool to collectively solve a puzzle. Yeah.
I started playing a live set online every day in April of last year just to keep myself sane. And it turned out that having been in radio for 30 years gave me something of an advantage, because I was already used to playing for invisible audiences.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Funny.
Hey, we're told the whole band is back on stage. We're just waiting for that magical word, lights. But Aaron, this has been an incredible pleasure having
nice
you here. I knew it would be. Yeah, and wishing you the best in future Billy and the Kids endeavors and future Disco Biscuits endeavors. Can't wait to hear from you guys again. And is there something on the Disco Biscuits horizon?
Yeah, I mean, we still have shows coming up. We kind of, the business philosophy was to kind of get out before the traffic started. So we got it all in May and June, and now there's still some stuff on the books, and, figuring it out. We're playing it as it lies, basically. The next round of shows to be announced are wintertime shows. So we'll see what happens.
Best of luck. I hope it all works out for all our sakes.
For sure.
Yes,
Thank
indeed.
you, guys. This was a fun chat.
It's great to have you.
Indeed.
And this will be archived permanently on YouTube.
That's right. So yeah, you can tell fans in the disco sphere or the Billy and the Kids sphere that they can check this out. They're archiving all of them. So we're looking forward to that. And the house lights are still not down. This is always that little moment of torture before the band actually.
So band members tricked out on the stage. Who was lingering on stage for the last 10 minutes?
They're in the wings. They're in the wings.
God,
They
God, the wings.
making their
yeah,
way back. All on
right,
deck is the notes we get. We got
right.
walk time, but walk time doesn't really map into knowing when they're going to start playing. So it's kind of a useless number for us. But getting these little
Uh,
status reports, it's not as fine grained as O'Teal is behind the amp line, but it's kind of like that. It's like okay, they're all migrating toward the stage. This here is our process, our increasingly creative ways of filling this terrifying lack moment here between running out of stuff to say and having to stop talking.
Right.
so, well, let me ask
It's
you this question, and then we could
wait.
cut out if we need to.
Actually, house lights are down. Actually, Aaron, that question will have to be left hanging
Sorry.
until next time. Thank you so much, Aaron Magner. Everybody enjoy the second set, and
voice of the Queen Chinese. away. Lord, the sun gonna shine in my back door someday. March wind gonna blow all my troubles away. I wish I was a headlight on the northbound train. But I wish I was a headlight on the northbound train. I shine my light through the cool Colorado rain.
from road.